is be true to what you said on paper.
I wish that I...
Well, good morning. Good morning. Quite a humid, warm morning this morning, too, as well. The weather is definitely taking us all for a loop here. Good morning again. You're listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. It is Saturday, September 9th. I say that date because we've been on a little hiatus. So folks know that we are live in studio.
Let me check myself here.
Well, yeah,
it's me.
I want to introduce my new co-host.
I'm here.
Dr. Bradley. If some of you might remember him, he worked here
a while back.
He is back with a big smile.
Yeah, man.
It's
nice to be back, brother.
Listen, I am so glad you're taking some time off with your family. I have done the same.
Yeah, we did a lot of traveling. We actually went to Alaska, man. I'm telling you.
Goodness, really?
I'm telling you, if I took a cruise to Alaska.
Okay.
And it's so funny. My wife and I we were talking about it, and my neighbor, helping me do my kitchen, and he was like, I would like to go to Alaska. And I looked at her, and I said, no, you guys need to make this happen. So my wife and I, my neighbor and his wife, we went on a cruise, Carnival cruise up to Alaska. Mm-hmm. The girls were complaining all the way over, man. We flew from Boston to Seattle. Okay. My wife's complaining. My neighbor's wife complaining. We get on the boat. Oh, it's a nice boat. Still complaining about Alaska. We're selling up to Alaska, complaining. The very first stop, I was up early working out, went out to get some coffee. I came back to the room and said, hey, I just saw an outlet. Outlet? You saw an outlet? An outlet? Shopping outlet? Man, they got off that boat so fast, man. They were gone.
Like it was the Titanic going down, right?
I said to my friend, what happened to the weather?
The weather underground, it changed. Well, I know. We'll get into that in a minute, because I'm gonna Pastor Hobbs is over there getting ready.
He's shopping. I've done the shop, man. I'd rather wear black and white like no other person I know, man.
Well, when we were coming in, you was asking him, because he's, like I said, folks, if he's on camera, you can see how sharp he is, and you're saying, where is he going? He said he was going to prison, and it kind of took you by surprise, because most people go in an orange jumpsuit.
Like, you going to prison like that? You going to prison like that?
He is.
What prison are you going to?
He's going to do his work up there that he's done,
That's good.
And really goes unnoticed a lot of times. It's just like we're the same way, Pastor Wall and others, Jamal, want to come to mind. A lot of people who do the work under the radar, because we don't look for the attention. We look for the
don't look for outcome. The accolades, man. No, it's all about what are the results.
There you go. But
what are the results?
A lot of people can't do that. So, Pastor Hobbs, if you wouldn't mind, sir, now that he's got his bow tie,
Look forward to the Lord, man.
Absolutely. Father God, we do bless you, we honor you, we reverence you, we give you praise for this day that you've made, and we choose to rejoice and be glad. And thank you for the opportunity to be on the air, on the airwaves once again. Bless this broadcast, all that's said, all that's done, be glorified, and we'll be careful to give you the praise, and we count this as done. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
We want to thank our sponsor, Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 781-342-0252. Guaranteed Mortgage is located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston, Mass. Guarantee Rate Mortgage, guaranteed to exceed your expectations. So I guess, Dr. Bradley, speaking of Guaranteed Rate Mortgage Company, we will be losing him probably around 8:05, because Cora will be coming in the studio.
Oh yeah, I would happily and graciously divorce myself from the mic.
Well, if you would.
I'll be in the back room there, man.
In the green room.
On the couch.
So now I can kind of image how excited when you told your wife there were outlets out there.
Oh yeah,
it's the same as when I tell Dr. Bradley, Cora Holbrook, our sponsor, is coming in.
You saw the emojis I said.
That's what I said. I was like,
I don't have to go by Dunkin' Donuts today.
That's why I see you came in empty hand. That's why I wanted to give you a heads up, right?
I appreciate you.
Yeah, save that for the next time, because she already had said she would be heading in. Also, we want to say a hearty good morning to our folks out there. I know it's been a minute. Good morning, Brother Jamal. Good morning, Brother Dickhead. Good morning, Kyle. Good morning to like I said, the list is growing. I have to tell you, Dr. Bradley.
Yeah. We have a lot of people listening.
Well, I ran into some folks, and I was in police headquarters, and I don't go there often, and I ran into several people, and they're like, "Oh, well, listen to the broadcast," and it kind of threw me off because I'm like, "You listen to the broadcast?" But so
you
they
never
say,
know.
yeah,
Who's
they don't call in, but they definitely listen. So, folks,
we appreciate it though.
Absolutely, and also just a public service announcement. School is back in session. The kids are out there. Boston started on Thursday and didn't disappoint as far as problems, but some of them minor, some of them a little more concerning. And I tell you, if this summer's behavior with our young people, we're going to talk about that a little bit more about that. Now, 9 o'clock hour is any indication of what we're into. We buckle up. We're gonna, but without further ado,
yeah, my brother William Bridgeforth, absolutely. And it's hot over there.
Oh,
man.
my goodness, it's been hot everywhere. This weather has been really, really unusual.
Well, climate change.
Well, they said there isn't climate change.
Oh yeah, you know what? People, I'll tell you something. You got to look at what's happening around you. What happened when we were kids? You can predict. You pretty much knew in September it was going to be a little cooler.
Right.
You think about that,
Right.
And now, you can't predict what the weather's going to be. But Scripture says it. It says that you're not going to know the seasons when the end times are near.
Yes.
So it's just that simple, man. I mean, people have a lot of money invested in fossil fuel,
right?
And they're trying to justify keeping it running. Right. But listen, look at what's happening around you.
But I think in some ways, Dr. Bradley, they kind of know it's coming to an end, because if you look at the people that pump, they're trying to get as much as they can now with the oil, because here in Massachusetts by 2030, you will no longer be able to sell fossil gas cars. If you have a used one, but they won't be selling any new ones.
No.
So the writing is on the wall. So they're going to try to gouge people as much as they can. But people are embracing electric cars. That is going to be my next vehicle.
Yeah, it's going to be my next vehicle as well. In fact, I was looking at a Genesis. A beautiful car.
Oh my gosh!
I was like, you got to be kidding me! And then the selling point was, you can burn any gas you want. And I was like, wait a second, Doc, hold up, time out. In 7 years, I'm not going to be able to get rid of this thing,
right?
Because it's burning fuel.
An antique.
It's going to be an antique.
Usually takes longer than that.
Exactly. And so, why would I buy something by the time I get it paid off? Because the way I'm going to handle it, I can't get rid of it,
right?
And then when I do, it's going to be significantly different than what I paid for it.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't know. While the car is beautiful, I think I would rather go electric.
I'm sure they must have an electric version.
Yes, they do. They have an electric version. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the Genesis. It's going to be electric.
Well, see, I'm a Ford F-150. I know, you have your opinions on those, but I've had mine since 2005. The one I have now, it's a gas, naturally. But I'm glad I waited. Because first of all, I wasn't going to pay what they were asking when they first came out for the Lightning. But now they've dropped them. The manufacturers dropped them by at least $10,000.
Okay.
So that's significant, because there's more in production now. That novelty is wearing out, and now it's going to become like buying a gas car in a year or two.
And I think the other thing, Larry, is that you'll notice this night. Advise our listening audience to look at that, to think about this. The issue that, and especially for investment purposes, the issue that this electric vehicle movement is facing is the infrastructure. The infrastructure is a big piece. How do you actually build an infrastructure and recharge the battery so that it's comparable to filling up with gas,
right?
As it relates to time expenditure. As it takes me a couple of minutes to go stop by the gas station, fill up my tank. It takes now too much time to actually charge the battery. I think there's going to be technology coming on board that's going to actually speed up the charging phase.
They already have two different versions. They have a supercharger, which is you can have one of those installed in your home, and a lot of when you go to these stores and restaurants, and those are superchargers, so that you could charge pretty much to get you half charged up at if you go to a grocery store or something like that while you're in shopping. That's the whole purpose. They figure you'll spend your money inside. They give you a charge. The ones that in your home are a little slower because they figure you're going to charge overnight. You don't need the rush. You know, you plug in overnight. But unless you're traveling, you know, a long period of time, you're going to be able to charge at home if you have a charger at home.
Yeah.
You see in Cambridge what they've done, right?
I haven't been out there.
So in Cambridge, because there's a lot of residentials out there, they've installed these chargers where you can park your car on the street, and the charger's running from you, and then they have those covers to cover up the plugs. So when people are on the sidewalk, and then you can charge your car in front of your house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they're adapting to if you live in an apartment, you'll be able to.
It's going to change. The infrastructure is the issue is how do you actually create infrastructure to support the vehicles,
right?
You know, but I agree with by 2030, you won't be able to buy a gas a consuming car in Massachusetts. It's going to all be electric.
Again, you're listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. I'm Larry Ellison, your host. My co-host, my brother, is back. It is good to see him. The calling number here is Dr. Bradley. I'm sorry, 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. And that brother over there that's cleaning in the Board of Health, that would be Pastor Hobbs. He's engineering this morning, as usual. You know, Dr. Bradley, like I said, since you've been gone, sounds like I always feel like I need to go in the song when I hear something. Since you've been gone, I'm about to go out. A lot has been going on in the world.
I see.
In the city, you know, but they want to delve in and get our listening audience's take on, you know, and the Globe did a 1 year in the spotlight on Boston Police Commissioner Michael Cox, whether he likes it or not. And some of the things that stuck out with me, the highlights. So when Michael Cox became police commissioner a year ago, he preached patience, though he seldom detailed his plans for transforming the police department and reducing violence in certain communities. His message to the public remained, change takes time. Now, after his full year in one of the most demanding posts in Boston, Cox continues in the same vein, says his tenure so far is a work in progress. It's like painting a picture, and you just get started, Cox said in a recent interview with the Globe. I've just started to put the outline. Well, some folks would say, are you painting by number or are you painting a Picasso portrait? Because I have to tell you, being honest, no sense in being here if we're not. Yes, it has been slow. And that's why I even said to him, I said, you know, I've renamed you David the Thinker, because I think sometimes, you know, this is not a place where you really have the luxury of time. Things happen. Last night we had 2 people shot, one not in good condition, and it's been a continuum of issues that need to be addressed. That, you know, some would say that he should have been more prepared because his tenure here on the command staff, that it shouldn't have taken as long as it's been taking to get things in place. And I think that's a fair assessment. Some people must see that as an attack. It is not. I think if we're not going to hold everyone to the same standard, because if this was a commissioner that didn't look like you and I came here and that was the answer. But he also in this interview, he said, you know, he's an introvert. Not a good trait in my opinion. If you're a police commissioner and have to deal with people, you have to be outward projecting and, you know, and people want to see you. I understand his concept in here. I like where he's saying that he wants his command staff to take a more active role and to be out there. But in times of crisis and things of that nature, they want to hear from the top person, just like they want to hear from the mayor. And, you know, also there's been speculation this week, Dr. Bradley, Mayor Wu may be departing after a short stint here as mayor at a job over at Harvard. That's the speculation that's going on. I know it was breaking news on Boston Black News the other day. So Pastor Hobbs and them had a scoop, and Pastor Wall had a scoop on that. But and then, you know, you go through there, and honestly, in this interview, in this article, a lot of the community folks weren't happy. And what raised a red flag with me was after everybody else who had kind of weighed in and they were tired of the patience or whatever, that Ed Davis gave him an A as a mark, a grade for his
first year.
Yeah. And I think in a lot of people's mind that was more confirmation of how involved Ed Davis was in the process and maybe even bringing him here. So I don't think that helped him in a lot of people's opinion.
I don't think it helped him in the mind of the people of color, but I do, in all fairness to Mike, and I feel comfortable calling him that. That is his name. I think the position of policing commissioner is tasked with a tremendous amount of responsibility that not only requires his command staff to be out, but also the commissioner to be out there. So that's one hit. The other hit, I think I would have done it differently, and I give Michael the deference that he deserves as a commissioner. But I think, people look to the police commissioner as the lead enforcement head to deal with these problems. But I think the problem is beyond policing throughout the city. I think it's going to be a combination of entities coming together to work in synergy to deal with the problem that we have in the city.
Right.
Policing is a major player, but there are other organizations also got to also play in the sandbox to solve this issue.
Right.
You can't. The police commissioner is not. He can't physically. It's impossible for him or his command staff to be in every place in the city at all times. So at some point, it takes the individual who has a person at the operation end of a firearm not to discharge.
Right.
They have that moral values not to hurt someone.
Right.
And that speaks beyond policing.
Right.
Policing comes in after that's done, and now deal with the first the doorway to the criminal justice system to deal with that issue. But what about teaching our children moral values so in the future they will not do these things? So I just say it goes beyond him. Now, what I would have done is that I would try to pull those forces together and see how we can come together to work in synergy to deal with the issue.
See, that's a great point. I don't think there's a mixture of folks who are more in line with him and they're very withdrawn in a sense, right? And people don't know them. You need a voice out there that people can immediately identify with, particularly when you're saying that your voice is not one you want to always be amplifying, right? Because it goes on to say, it's part of the culture change we're trying to do, he said. Talk to enough Boston officers and Cox critics, and a trend starts to emerge. They like the commission of personal virtues. Same here. He's smart, good-hearted police officer who's trying to do the right thing. But then they say they want to see more out of him, oftentimes more of him. Larry Calderon, president of the Boston Police Patrolmen's Association, the city's largest police union, said in a statement that Cox needs to push harder for changes that would allow the department to attract more officers from other departments. While the BPA certainly appreciates Commissioner Cox's effort to make the BPD a better and safer job for our members, at the end of the day, results matter, Calderon said. And I think Boston is short, depending on who you ask, between 300 and 400 officers. It was pretty much in that condition when he got here. There's really been some attempts, to have some lateral transfers come. Only 3 people were interested in that, so that didn't help much. And even at the way that the classes are graduating in the numbers, and there's 130 something that are going to hit the streets next month, that many people, that's the part they don't talk about. How many will be leaving in the same time frame, right? So you're not really.
So that gain is limited. But again, that goes right back to where my line of thought is that the conversation, the solution, I should say, is beyond the commissioner, because that issue around recruiting, the commissioner has absolutely no control over residency policy.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Which plays a major role in people making a decision: should I not come to the city? He has no control over the quality of education within the school, although he can work with the school department to deal with the violence in the school. So I think it's going to be a combination of parties working together to resolve the issue. It's just not. Everyone points to the commissioner because he is the law enforcement officer. But I think everyone play a role in solving the problem. And as a former command staff member, I can tell you get caught up in the what's going on in the Glass Palace.
Right.
You don't get a necessary, chance to get out there. I think one of the things that he should put in place is make it mandatory for not only him, but also his staff and his command staff to be seen in the streets and making sure that people comfortable approaching them. That would be my recommendation.
That's true, but I think also you have to, historically, that was already a huge consideration for you being put on there, not the cart, before the horse. Where once you get in there, now you go introduce yourself. It's a tougher sell.
Okay.
When you were people knew you, the community knew you. You were out there. You were president of MAMLEO, so people knew who you were. It's hard for people to build trust. And now they said, "Oh, you're coming because they told you to come out here."
Well, I got you. I got you. Yeah, I got you.
You see,
I got you.
Right,
but at some point, the process has to stop.
It does, but the initiative, and it doesn't encourage people to be take that initiative
Seriously.
until they get that job, right? Because now, if you have a track record of that, that's going to be continuing, and you're already ahead of the curve. But if you're only starting to do that once you get the job, it's like, okay, this comes with the job. I got to go out here and play nice with these people. I got to go out here. Because now the article goes on to say, Sophia Hall, who we all know, in fact, we have to get her back on the broadcast, from the lawyers for civil rights, from the Progressive Advocacy Lawyers for Civil Rights, said Cox's appointment last summer, given his story, was a really important moment for Boston. But as for how much he's actually accomplished, Hall said, not enough. I hope that his selection signaled the city's real interest in having diversity flow through the pipeline. She said, noting that nearly all the district captains are still white men. Candidly, I'm not seeing that yet. Abigail Forrester, a community activist who was on the search committee that selected Cox as a finalist for the job, said a major reason why they chose him was because of his thoughtfulness. But so far, he's in the observing and absorbing phase, Forrester said, and he will need to make bigger moves in the next year. Now, a perfect example of that is what Sophia is saying, is that, at MAMLEO we were pushing to have, because we know there are no one on the list to be made captains that we wanted to see, and the mayor agreed to put deputy superintendents back in charge of our district stations so we could have some representation of color. Cox just recently, in his reorganization, he put zone or area commanders, or I don't even know what their function is, honestly. I don't even know what the right terminology is, but it was counter to what we were asking for. And he put basically a white male and a white female, white captains in those positions. Well, that did two things. It was almost like a slap in the face for what we were asking for. And two, it opened up two more spots for permanent positions for captains on a list that contains no one that looks of color.
Okay. But so my as you were speaking, I was thinking what my response to your comment would be, what does the city want of him? Have anyone came to him to say this is, or did he come to anyone to say this is what I'm suggesting? What do you think about it?
No, if you look at honestly, and like I said, we have to be honest with the public. Yeah. His inner circle does not look like you and I.
Okay.
So I don't know who he's taking advice from, but I can tell you.
That was going to be, you're stepping ahead of me, because what I was going to say is, okay, has anyone given him an overview of what they think? Has he been open to see, okay, this is what the city is looking for in the community of color? And that's one piece. Mm-hmm. The second piece is that although, you may select a person of color, you have to look at who that individual is surrounding himself with or herself. Yeah. Because those are your in the room, back room thinkers that are saying this is how we're going to give them what they're asking for, but not give them what they're asking for.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. I give them a facsimile of what they think they're getting, but I'm not going to give them what they really want. Right. So you have to, kind of look at, okay, who's he bringing in around him to actually support him? Who's his chief of staff?
It's someone
who's the superintendent. Who's the superintendent in chief?
Right. So let's start with that. His chief of staff is not a person of color. Okay. His number two person is not a person of color. So those are the people I would say when you really have, if you're the commissioner, when you're having those one-on-ones, more with those folks every day.
That's your inner circle.
That's right.
That's the individual. You're sitting down and you're saying, okay, this is how I see personally how I want to move forward. Right. Any manager, I think, any
those
good
would be
leader
your policymakers, right?
Yes.
The other ones are just charged with carrying that out.
Well, actually, those two individuals would be the individuals actually coming into that little inner think tank and trying to talk about, okay, well, Commissioner, this is what you want to do. Okay, this is how I see that we can roll out bringing deputies back into the situation and,
Right.
and leadership
Yeah.
and kind of zoning it out. All right, this is how we can see. This is how I see that this is who I think we should be a part of that bureau or in charge of that bureau, and this is the reason why. So, if he's not doing that, then he's not tapping into the brain power, which is immense in the Boston PD
And I
as it
think
relates to trying to get
we've
the job.
talked about it
get
before
the
as
job
well.
Done.
Is he still operating under the old spectrum? Is that a St. Clair's report? And in that St. Clair's report, honestly, in all fairness, that St. Clair report would disqualify him from being the police commissioner.
Yes, it would.
Because it's recommendation that no one below the rank of lieutenant be
Yeah.
promoted to the command staff. Commissioner Cox's civil service rank is sergeant. Is sergeant. He's a sergeant detective. So detective is not a civil service recognized rank.
Right.
So he would not have qualified to be in leadership.
No, he wouldn't have.
So I think
would I, by the way.
it kind of says something that now you're not basing it on qualifications, but you're basing it on a policy that when its first conception was conceived, there were no black lieutenants in the police department. There was only one black sergeant. So we'll continue to embrace a policy that on its surface was racist, and now we keep implementing that as a litmus test. And the fact that through MAMLEO's efforts, we dismantled this whole myth about this test yielding the best and the brightest for the lieutenants. For the
but
sergeants.
I thought they moved away from the St. Clair Commission
No,
recommendation.
that's what they still use as the gold standard, that you must at least be a sergeant to be in leadership in the Boston Police Department.
So let me just process this. So
Sure.
I can come to the Boston PD with a master's degree in management.
Our current president of MAMLEO has a
It's a
PhD. Right.
Okay, so I'm just
He's not qualified.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to process. So I can actually come to the department with a high level advanced degree and not be a sergeant. And you're not considering me because I have not gone through this regurgitation process
That's
of information that I'm not even using to carry
That's
out
right.
the job.
That's right.
That doesn't make any sense.
Right. We're ignoring your intelligence, and we're basing it on this.
Yeah.
We're basing
It
it
makes
on
absolutely no sense.
on an exam that a judge said has been discriminated against folks for over 50 years.
Yeah.
That's what we're continuing to be the gold
I thought they
standard.
moved away from that.
No.
Because you have a tremendous amount. You have a lot of police officers
Yeah.
that are qualified, academically, and can bring a lot to the table,
Right.
but have not taken, for whatever reason,
Right.
have not gone through this process.
Well, I think a
this
perfect-
promotional
Billy
process. that we think
Sylvester,
is-
Joe Harris, Willis Saunders,
Yeah.
right? Just to name a few that you look like, were detectives.
Mm-hmm.
We're all detectives.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Eager, I thought was a good boss. Was a patrolman.
Yeah, Eddie was very good. I remember
Right.
Eddie. He was
But
a
they
very good-
tapped
very
him
good
because of
boss.
his skill set,
Yeah.
not because of his rank.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying is that so you deprive opportunities, and especially now when you know that in order to have another captain of color promoted, you're going to have another exam. Right? So we're probably 7 to 10 years away from seeing another captain of color.
But wait a second. But I thought the exam was already in court, and it had been proven that the exam is
Correct.
Not
So that's
necessarily
why you
the
can't.
best
Right.
vehicle.
So the current exam that's in place that they had prior to this decision is what they're still promoting from. And there was no one, because we didn't have people of color in the lieutenant spot to be able to take the test for captain. So currently, right now in 2023, the civil service exam for Boston has no one on their list that they could yield a captain of color. There is a remedy for that, is putting the deputies back in charge of the districts so that we have a say in who runs our police departments here in the city of Boston. So there's a remedy, they're just choosing not to use it.
Okay.
And then what they've done to kind of modify it in some way was they made 2 more captains, which they didn't have to, and put them in charge. But that doesn't, where's the representation that looks like you and I? That doesn't happen. So let me just, this article goes on. It says, former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis, who ran the department during the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing and is now a security consultant, said he gives Cox an A+ so far for his steady hand. I think he's doing a great job, Davis said. Cox thus far, unlike Davis and some of his other predecessors, Davis was one of a string of commissioners including William Bratton, brothers Paul and William Evans, and most recently William Gross, who were household names around the city. Gross even considered running for mayor in 2021. Cox is more reserved. He does not like TV cameras and is not ubiquitous. He does not have a ubiquitous a presence. The difference has been noticeable. Asked about the public side of the job, whether quite a commissioner can be dynamic enough to satisfy a community that demands visibility, Cox told the Globe he's an introvert. He's in being a public face is not who I am naturally.
All right, for the people who are actually listening, ubiquitous means to be around everywhere.
Right.
All right. I don't. Wow. I don't know what to say about it, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm kind of lost for words, and that's unusual.
But those two, and you tell me, because you've been in leadership, right? Do those two go together, right? Where you don't like to be around people and you're an introvert, but you're the top person in the police department?
No, I think being the top person is automatically going to have to be out there. You know
have
what
to
I mean?
get out of your comfort
You're going to
zone.
get out of your comfort zone. There's no question about it. However, it'd be in fairness to him, you know, when I was in leadership, I am not a political kind of person. I'm the kind of person like I got a task, I got to get it done. But I'm out there and among the people knew that they can approach me to be and I was in 911, by the way.
But the difference, though, in no disrespect to what you were doing, you were not the police commissioner.
No,
you ran a bureau, or you were an opera unit, right? Yeah. So you only had to really engage that top, like me being the president of MAMLEO. I'm pretty much, whether people believe it or not, because you hear on the radio, that is my personality outside of here. But I knew I had to adapt, because being the head of the organization, they didn't want to hear from our press person. They wanted to hear from me.
Yeah.
You know, when you were in that role, they call looking for you, not your press, not your media relations person.
Yeah.
So that comes with the job. It comes with the territory. You can't relinquish that. There's some instances you can send out a press release. Yeah. But when you have things going on and people want answers to, they want to hear from you, because also the officers need to hear what your take is on what's happening, right? That you have their back when it's necessary.
So who are they hearing from at the commissioner level, though, at leadership in the police department? Who are they? Who's visible?
Well, if you're asking me that question, that poses a problem, because you should know. The public should know. Who are they, right? Yeah. This goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that it just can't be when there's a tragedy that you put someone in front of the microphone and they have their name under them and their title. They have to be already doing the work. That helps when these things happen, is that people have relationships with these folks, that they feel like they can reach out to them. That is very helpful. I honestly don't know who that person is.
Because one of the things I would do if I were in his position, or I would recommend him do, is to start looking at, okay, who's in charge of my schedule, and what are they scheduling me for? Because I will want to be more involved in, now community meetings. I want to be more involved in meeting leadership in the community, to actually kind of figure out what's going on and how the police department can apply resources to deal with those issues beyond the district station. You know what I mean? Beyond the captain in the district station. Do they still have ComStat meetings in the Boston PD? And in those ComStats, what are they doing in terms of actually identifying what the problems are, identifying the stakeholders, and working with those stakeholders to resolve the problem? So I will actually try to figure out, okay, who are the players and how can I help the players?
Right. So here's some of the comments from that article. It says, our job is to be there, yet he never seems to be. So how is he doing his job? He's the leader, yet he doesn't lead. Cox has broadly said he wants to build trust between his officers and the community by listening to what the residents say they need, yet he doesn't meet with them to listen. He reminds you of the guy who never gets engaged because in reality he doesn't want to commit or marry. Nothing wrong with that, so long as we understand and accept the situation and either move on or encourage the commissioner to bring in a second command who will fill those shoes or change his ways. Now, this is exactly what I was saying to you, right? If you have other people serving, because if people have confidence in the people, they're fine if they don't hear from you.
But that's why I asked the question: who is the person that the mouthpiece out there for the police department? Who is that individual? If it's not Michael, is it his chief of staff? Is it his superintendent in chief? Is it the Bureau of Field Services Bureau? Is it a BIS, investigative bureau chief? Who's the ranking individual who's out there in the community talking to members of the community about?
I think you're asking the same question that the community is asking. Who are these people? And they don't see them enough, apparently, as well. And I think people show up to certain meetings.
I mean, but Larry, the image I'm getting in my mind is that Nero's fiddles while Rome is burning. I mean, that's what I'm getting in my mind when you're talking.
Well,
I'm seeing that. You know?
I think you're you like me, and like I said, and I think sometimes people see when you're pointing out, or some people will say criticizing, is that you don't like a person, and that can be further from the truth. It could be further from the truth. I think, as they said, he's a nice person.
Yeah.
But I think it's also fair game when you sit in those positions and things are not working. The buck stops with you. As Truman said, it stops with you because you are charged with leading, and it's not just sending other people out there as your voice. And those folks, there's Dr. Bradley, you've been in leadership in the police department. There are certain meetings that folks are sent to because those are the folks who make all the noise. And then there's a large population. Like, I'd be willing to bet that very few, if any of them, have met with people like Pastor All, right? Who has been a staple in the community, has been talking about, state of emergency, all the things that we're seeing, experiencing now, right? Myself, right? I have not had a one-on-one with Commissioner Cox. And a lot of the dismantling of the racism in the police department was during my tenure.
Well, see, that's my point, Larry. I would have someone, and I would recommend it. If I was talking to Michael was standing here today, I would say to him, my recommendation would be for you to identify someone on your staff who will reach out to stakeholders in the community and set up a place where you and the stakeholders can talk about what is happening in the community. Because if you have the community as a part of your development, when you're developing your policy, then the community is going to be in support of the policy.
Right.
If they're coming in and you're using the voice of God to say this is what you shall do, then they're probably not going to support it. So just to get out there and just to say, okay, what is happening in the community? How can we help you from the PD side? And and a part of that conversation will be with the captain, who's in charge of that district, that the stakeholders are residing or conducting business in, and you're trying to craft a plan to resolve the problem.
Right, but again, Dr. Bradley, there has to be a buy-in from who you're sending, right? You just can't put stars on someone's shoulder and expect the community to embrace them, right, and believe it. You've got, what's your history? Like I said, people think, oh, okay, now you're coming here, so what was your commitment prior to you being elevated to this position, even if it wasn't on a wide scope? But what's your track record? Where community meeting were you at before you were told to come to this one? That you went on your own, that you showed some initiative, because that really should be a litmus test. What's your connection to the community?
Yeah, I agree with that. But like again, I go back to my previous comment. That's, you have to start someplace, and so you start with finding someone who you feel that the community can relate to, have that individual reach out, and you identify one problem that you can, and because you have to start small, one problem that you can deal with, and then start building off that. That's how you build that trust. So if you're just going to come in with a sweeping embrace and try to grab everything at once, you're going to end up getting yourself inundated. But if just deal with one major issue, where you have crafted a plan with the community, then I think it starts to spread.
It does, and your point is well taken. But again, they're not developing people to take an interest in that until they get in those positions, and the initiative should be right in community engagement. They talk it, but it's not really put into practice, right?
So let me ask you a question. I've been away since 2010, so.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure this out. So what is the?
Oh, I'm sorry.
what is the movement towards community policing in BPD? Is that still a movement? Is that something that's happening?
It's spoken. I'll put it like that. I don't know how much of it's been implemented. But I'm sorry, I didn't know we had a call. I couldn't see the lights over there. Good morning, Carl. Welcome to the round table.
I didn't see anything flashing either.
Good morning. Good.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to Pastor Hobbs, because he was at last month's returning citizens event in Roxbury. He did have T. Michael Thomas's shirt, Trey's, not triggers, with a green T-shirt, all in black capital letters.
Okay.
Again, I want to give a shout out to Pastor Hobbs.
God bless you, man.
All right, Pastor Hobbs. I mean, I got out of that clean suit and put on a green T-shirt, huh, brother? I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dick. We appreciate that, brother.
My question is Police Commissioner Michael Cost the mayor's puppet, and is she pull the strings? Or if not, why would somebody who's a very shy guy would take a job that he has to be in front of the camera and be in front of the public at all times? So it doesn't make sense to me,
Yeah. Well, I think some folks would say, based on the conversation was being had. Like I said, we have to be totally honest. Is that this was former Commissioner Ed Davis's pick, and what's concerning for me as former president of the Minority Police Officers Association, that I take that with a grain of salt. This is someone that myself, as well as the NAACP, took a vote of no confidence against. And if that is the person that you're taking direction from, and you've surrounded yourself with a lot of his people. His chief of staff was Ed Davis's chief legal counsel, someone who MAMLEO had very little confidence in, who was instrumental in a lot of these lawsuits and the problems that we were having. And this is now the person, your chief of staff, that's a significant spot. So there are a lot of red flags for people like myself who are, if we're honest with ourselves, don't set well. Now, he has every right to choose his leadership as he sees fit, but I also have every right to question it. And then when we see things are not progressing, we shouldn't be surprised and wonder why they're not, because of who you are leaning on and having these conversations with, rather than actually having a conversation whether you agree or not. And I know he's had conversations with MAMLEO's current leadership. I don't know how those are going, but clearly not much has changed as far as any suggestions, because what I'm seeing, I don't think a lot of this would be recommendations from MAMLEO, these people. And again, that command staff structure in the districts, the deputy superintendents in charge of the districts, the structure that I'm currently seeing in it was not what we were looking for. You might as well have left it the way it was, because again, when you put those vacancies, those weren't for us to fill.
Wow. I'm stunned. If the person that I think you're talking about is the chief of staff, I don't see much change at all.
Yeah, Nicole Top is his chief of staff.
That's what I was thinking.
Exactly. Like, you couldn't find somebody. I would have even somebody like a Sophia, someone who was been a change agent. I would have reached out to.
I reached out to someone like that. That tells me that says a lot of things to me.
Exactly.
As a just as an educator.
Right. Exactly.
And as a former commander, it tells me that he's not running the show. Someone's saying this is what we want.
Well, everybody believes Ed Davis is still running the show because these are his people, right? His chief, his media person, Mary Ellen Burns.
That's not
These
good.
are Ed Davis's former people. Ed Callahan came back. We're bringing back recycling.
Ed Callahan is back.
Yes, he's back in the consulting. This is what I'm saying. It's like, I don't see this as progress. I have to be honest. I don't see this as progress. I see a regression. But Dick, stand by. I want to bring this other call. I apologize. I said I couldn't see the lights on the phone from where I'm sitting. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning, gentlemen. This is T. Michael Thomas. How you guys doing?
Good morning, T. I know I owe you a call. It's been a crazy week with school starting back.
It's all good, but there's a couple of things that I really need to bring to the surface. Let's talk about robberies up in Boston. Then let's also talk about the last day of the NAACP convention. The former Secretary of Labor, Martin J. Walsh, announced $4 trillion will be coming from the Biden administration towards labor. Fast forward, look at in Boston. All these cranes, all these construction jobs, good paying jobs. The people who are working on these jobs, they don't live in Boston. They don't vote in Boston. They don't pay taxes in Boston. Now, second thing, People's Academy. We have approached the mayor, the different elected officials on the council, state, whatever, and to think and to see the excuse and the pushback on sitting with us, on working with us. When they get on television, they will say, when you see something, say something. We're saying and we're showing them a solution to address the robbery, the street violence, etc. No callbacks, no sit-downs. To me, it tells me those individuals that are holding those elected positions should resign. They're not qualified because the interest of their constituents is not in place. And Pastor Walt would say for a long time, we are under a state of emergency with all the gun violence, etc. Now, they're saying mass and cast that's less than 10 years old is under a state of emergency.
No, and
Any response?
well, on Tuesday, people have an opportunity to voice their voice. Will they do that? And we're going to talk about that and later on in the broadcast. But you're right, there is an election on Tuesday. Most people don't even know, for the city council.
Really?
Yes, I know. Here in Boston, there is an election for our city councils. Unfortunately, not enough people are running in the at-large position, so those people won't be on the ballot until November because they have only 8 people running. So there's no need for a runoff. But people can make a choice. So if people on Tuesday continue to re-elect some of the same people who have had no solutions over the last several years, if not more.
It's on the constituents.
Thank you. You get the government you deserve.
You get the government you vote for.
You get the government
Unless
you deserve.
get like the federal government and
Yeah.
they try to have a coup and change the government.
Right, yeah,
You know what
right,
I
I know.
But you
So-
get what you vote for.
So, I mean, T, this is why I said, we'd be sitting here saying, well, we have a black police commissioner, we can't point out their flaws. We would be hypocrites. And to sit there and see what we're seeing and seeing some of the same people who were part of the situation while we're in where we are now are being brought back into the fold.
Yeah, that's
I see in Dr.
Can I comment on that, Commissioner?
That's
Sure, sure.
Every time I see the commissioner, I would approach him, saying, and he reacts like a deer in the headlights, in the middle of Maine on the highway, when the lights hit the deer. Commissioner, all I'm simply saying is sit with us, let us show you a part solution. Right? Crickets.
But I think when he stated himself that he's an introvert and that he's not into this crowd, that's not the job of the police commissioner. I'm sorry. That itself says that this probably may not be the position for you because, I think that would have worked in his former position in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in a college campus town where you don't have a lot of the same issues that you have in a city like I'm sure they don't have an encampment. I'm sure they don't have young people going around the city terrorizing it, destroying the mall where businesses are leaving over South Bay. Don't have the same problems you have in an urban setting. You can take that approach. But
if I'm a person, who's selecting a particular individual for a position that I used to have, but I no longer have, but I want to be relevant in that position, then he will probably be the best personality to put in place because I don't have to worry about any pushback.
There you go.
So you have to also look at it from that perspective.
Right.
So if I got Larry's ear, who's the president, and Larry has confidence in me, and I say, okay, Larry, I want to run this, but I can't because of these entities that are already voted me out.
Yeah.
But this guy, you know what I mean? So maybe I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm saying, but you have to look at it from that perspective. Right. Because again, I have a lot of respect for Mike.
This is not a personal, and that's what I'm saying. This is not a personal attack. But I think when you're sitting in that chair, we have to be honest in assessing what is really going on and what we see. We can't just say, this is going to hurt. No, that comes with the territory. Just like when I was president of MAMLEO, just like now, being a commissioner on the Post. People have made comments. People have challenged. People have filed ethics violations against me in that capacity, right? It comes with the territory. It doesn't mean there's anything to it, but it comes with I don't take it personal. They have every right. If they think that I'm not performing in the way that I should to attack, go ahead. But that's why I always make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. That's what happened. So, gentlemen, former Commissioner Ed Davis, who MAMLEO gave a failing grade, who gave a vote of no confidence, says he gives current Police Commissioner Michael Cox, an A+. Not just an A, an A+. So either he's tone deaf or he's disengaged with reality of what's going on in the
Mike's
city.
Doing what he want him to do.
All right. How does it? Everyone else in there is tempered. They're not attacking, but they're not. I don't think anyone else gave an A+. What grade would you give him, Dicka?
Enough.
An F. How about you, T?
Non-responsive. Worse than an F. Because when you, like I said, when you approach an individual, they always say it's all up to all of us to come together to resolve a lot of these issues. We're putting in front of them practical, sustainable solutions. And when they refuse to embrace it or to even sit and have a conversation on how we can create jobs and opportunities that these individuals, it would impact their family, community, and the economy, they are the problem. I'm saying it here. They are the problem.
Well, see, Larry, I would say the jury is still out. I would say the jury is still out. He's only been in place for a year. All right. Sometimes it takes that kind of time to get an assessment, although he's been here before.
That's what I'm
all
saying.
right. But you know what? He got to get back. He got to get his equilibrium. I say the jury's still out on it.
I've been patient, but I have to disagree with you, Dr. Bradley.
Okay.
And my reason being is that exactly what you said. Commissioner Cox served in more roles in leadership on paper than anyone. He's probably served the longest on the command staff before he left than anyone. So he has had plenty enough time to assess this play. He wasn't gone for 20 years. He was gone for less than 2 years, right? So if anyone should have been prepared to hit the ground running a lot better than this, I'm not saying run a marathon, but to hit the ground, it shouldn't have taken that assessment. Because if that's the case, if you took all that time to come up with a solution, and your solution was to bring back all the same people, you could have done that from day one.
Yeah, I think the jury is still out because I think again that he has to make a decision.
Yeah,
he has to make a decision. And I'm going to run my department. I don't, based on what you're telling me, you know what I mean. And I don't know. I haven't been in the BPD for 13 years. But I know the players that you're talking about.
Okay.
All right.
Does that sound like progress?
No. That's regression. That's definitely regression. There's no question about that. So the question becomes, why would he do that? Why would he bring those individuals in?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the person that gave him the A+, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if there may be a battle going on between the two of them, you know, where so that is preventing him from actually moving forward with the changes he want to make because he still have that internal battle that we're not aware of because he wants to do the change.
Right,
he
but
wants to have
here's
the
the
change
thing,
in
though.
place.
We have provided him, I would say cover, with the opportunity by knocking down these barriers. Disparate drug testing. Sophia Hall from the Lawyers Committee knows folks told us that. These exams, right? The disparate treatment. So a lot of the things, and he talks in there about trying to remove them, the BPD from civil service. So a lot of this was not.
I wouldn't recommend doing that.
But as I say, here's the thing. Why would you not talk to the people, the organization that took down these barriers for solutions rather than going back to the people who drove the bus in the ditch?
Because I'm not prepared yet to talk to them because I have an internal fight that you're not aware of.
It doesn't matter. But that's not what the people are saying. And you have a mayor who ran on being progressive.
Okay.
Right? So you were saying you had a change. You were ready to turn the page. You had the opportunity. Obstacles have been removed from in front of you, allowing you to do so. And yet we're continuing to ride the horse and buggy,
but Larry,
instead of getting our electric cars.
I hear you. I think there's a hidden force here that we are not aware of. We have not seen. I think there's a hidden force here that he's fighting that we're not aware of.
But I can't accept that because we pay the price for that, right? The other side, it's smooth sailing, right? Like they want to get off the boat. Your wife didn't want to get off the boat. Like black people didn't want to ride boats for a long time. It took us a long time to get comfortable on a boat.
She saw the outlet.
Well, anyway. No, but historically, right? Boats weren't our friends, right? They weren't bringing us on a cruise.
No, they were not.
So again, he's not, because you had even Ed Davis, who came in from an outside. I know everybody's different. It didn't take him long before he started making changes. All the other people who, even Paul Evans, right, Kathy O'Toole, who had been gone a lot longer than him.
20 years.
Didn't take her long to make changes when she came back.
But I don't think that's a fair comparison, though, Larry.
I think, but when you're saying that time, give him more time, I don't think time is something that, because when you do, you give them all this time and then you come up with the same solution.
Yeah, but I think those other individuals come in.
It seems to be wasted time.
They'll come in and make changes because of who they are and what they represent. I think there's a barrier between him and the changes that he wants, and I think that barrier is Ed Davis. I think he's fighting that internal fight. Because
I don't think so,
Larry. But why would he bring back those people?
I don't think.
I think he was instructed to do that, Larry.
But I'm saying I don't think it's barriers. I think that's the person he's leaning on for advice. and he's taking his advice.
He need to change that person then.
Because I don't think he's being forced into that.
Okay,
I think this is somewhat, maybe he feels like he had a lot to do with him getting the job, and that's his way of paying him back. But I don't think it's he has to do.
All right. Well, I mean, that's how I'm on the outside looking in.
Right.
You're in there, so I have to give you that deference. But
my honest assessment that I have not really seen what I consider.
But I can tell you from being a former commander, there are sometimes there are fights happening internally that the people that you actually supervise and the people that you actually have influence over do not understand or do not know those fights that are happening.
Right.
So they can't really see.
Right.
Understand your changes.
Well, we've got to go. It's been an interesting. We're going to get into, like I said, there is an election on Tuesday. Most people in Boston don't even know it. Even they drive by those sandwich boards and it doesn't tell them that they have an election September 12th, which is Tuesday. And I'm just afraid it's going to be an abysmal. But we're going to get into that in our 9 o'clock hour. Our guest coming up is Cora Holbrook and her team from Guaranteed Rate Mortgage. We're going to take our break. You've been listening at the Roundtable with MAMLEO. We'll be right back.